All right, welcome back to Josh Bearhart's Reading Room. I am Josh Bearhart Hawk. I'm the author of the journal, Legends and Tales, Creepy and Fun Stories to Tell Around the Campfire, and the upcoming book, GPS Signal Lost. And I mentioned that book in the last video, so this is going to be reading Chapter 3 of the journal. And before I get into that, I do want to talk briefly because GPS Signal Lost is an upcoming book that I've got. It's this one right here. I'm going to be reading this at some point in the future, but after it has released and people have had a chance to kind of read through it. It is currently available for pre-order on Amazon if you're watching this before April 26th. April 26, 2024 is actually the release date of it, and after that you can go out and you can buy it on Amazon as an ebook or a paperback. Like I said, pre-order is available for Amazon right now as an ebook, or you can buy all of my books over on my website, joshbearhartlegendsandtales.com, and you can get signed copies of all of my books. Every book that I have come out is going to have a signed copy available on my website. So let me put that back there. And like I said, this has something in it, by the way. A lot of people use these things for show. I don't do that on here. But like I said, we're going to be reading Chapter 3 of the journal. And so if you have the book, you can read along. If you don't have the book and you want to pick up a copy, you can go down to the link below in the description. I've got the links down there for both Amazon as well as the website, so you can click on those, go directly there, and order your copy, whether it's a signed copy or an ebook copy, whatever it happens to be. You can order those at the links down below, and you can read right along with me. As I'm reading, you can listen in, or you can actually just read the story and put me on in the background. That's what it's all here for. So let's go ahead and get started here on Chapter 3. So Chapters 1 and 2 were kind of the intro chapters. We had the mysterious guy in Chapter 1 that was digging something up from a cemetery. And then somebody came out behind him and freaked him out at the end of the chapter. And then Chapter 2 was kind of an intro to Josh and what was going on with him and finding the journal and all that kind of stuff. So we'll go ahead and get into Chapter 3 here, the first entry. August 10th, 1964. Another successful recovery. I was a little worried about this one, considering the information about the location came from a drunkard, but it was actually spot on. Samantha will be happy to hear all about it in the morning, but I need to write it down while the story is fresh in my mind. This is a new logbook, the 5th this year, so I need to start it off like all the others. My name is Heath Borgiers, and I hunt down supposedly cursed objects for clients who think they can use them to cast spells or curses. I don't believe in curses, of course, which is what makes this line of work so lucrative. Since most people do believe in them, the number of people willing to do this sort of thing is limited. I focus mainly in the Ohio area, though I have traveled out of state a time or two when the price has been right. So with that out of the way, let's get to the job. It was about a month ago in early July when a man named Lyle Jordan walked into the office. Samantha had told me that he may come by, but I didn't expect him to actually show after she relayed the fee for what he was asking. We enjoyed a rather wonderful cup of tea as he explained to me that his great-grandfather was buried with a cursed item unlike any I have ever heard of. In the late 1830s, there was a rather little-known trend of having parts of your body replaced with artificial parts that had been blessed by a shaman practicing a secret form of hoodoo. Supposedly, these parts would do things like grant the person great fortune and ward off evil spirits. The effectiveness was based on the part being replaced. Giving up a finger might only grant a small chance of the spell being effective, whereas an entire arm or leg could practically guarantee the success. Lyle's grandfather, Theodore Johnson, replaced all of his limbs, starting with his left leg in 1838, his right leg in 1841, his right arm in 1848, and his left arm in 1859. Where the story piqued my interest was when he mentioned that his grandfather had been on a train that had been held up in 1842 as part of a robbery involving a ruthless gang that was well known in the area for robbing stagecoaches and banks, leaving no one alive following their heists. As they cleared the train of passengers, Mr. Johnson remained quietly in his seat. When the gang members tried to force him off, one of them somehow managed to shoot himself in the foot. This led to a chaotic situation wherein all 6 gang members would be fatally shot by each other when they all drew their guns, apparently thinking that the law had arrived and the guns had all gone off by accident. The law enforcement agents that investigated would postulate that the heat on the train had caused the gunpowder in the gang members' guns to ignite due to being poorly packed and exposed to the direct sun as they waited the train. This whole story seemed really weird to me, especially as there's no record of this gang or robbery. But Lyle insists that the story is true, and even had an old book that he said had been in his family for generations that recounts the tale. Following that incident, Theodore lived for another 20 years before dying peacefully in his sleep in 1862. The catch is that his body was buried in a secret location and under a fake name to prevent grave robbers stealing his lucky limbs. Lyle asked that I discover the true location of his grandfather's burial and recover the arms and legs, and he offered me more than I normally make in 10 years' time to find them. Of course, I said yes to this. Samantha verified the funds were placed in an escrow account, and I started researching. I started with burial records from the time, checking the archives, and calling up every historian I knew from the local area. I finally got a lead from Jonathan, who works out in Claremont County, but grew up in Kilbuck, which is where my search had led me to think would be the best bet. Jonathan said he knew a guy who might be able to help and instructed me to visit a local watering hole, the name of which escapes me now, on a Friday evening and ask for Chuck. Friday evening came and I went down, fully expecting to get the runaround from the small crowd that looked like they spent every waking minute there. Surprisingly, I was able to find Chuck rather quickly, and after explaining to him who I was and why I was there, he was more than happy to provide me with more information than I knew what to do with, although I had to ensure his glass remained full for the duration of the conversation. I was able to find out that Chuck's father was one of exactly 3 people who had been there when Lyle's grandfather was lowered into the ground, and Chuck had been to the grave as a boy. With this information, I was able to prepare for the excavation and make my way to the cemetery. It did take a little longer than I expected to dig up the grave, but when I opened the lid of the casket and saw the appendages lying there, it made it all worth it. After reburying the body, I made my way home to have a nightcap and silently celebrate the windfall that is about to be mine. I did get quite the scare, though, when I heard footsteps coming up behind me as I unlocked the door. Apparently, my car is rather loud, and Sarah, my neighbor, heard me coming from a mile away and made her way over to give me an earful about being out so late and tell me how I should be more considerate of the neighbors and get a quieter car if I'm going to be out at all hours of the night. I think I'm going to take a bit of the money I'm getting from this job and use it to install a fence and one of those automatic gates, so next time she can yell at a stone wall rather than me. So that's the end of Chapter 3. I've got a whole playlist so you can check out what's going to be happening in Chapter 4. If you missed Chapters 1 and 2, you probably should have gone back and watched those before you watched this one. But this is going to be reading the entire series, the entire book, starting chapter by chapter and going through them all. So I hope you all enjoyed this one. If you did, like and subscribe if you haven't already. And go check out Chapter 4. That's going to be coming up. I'm going to be releasing these weekly, like I mentioned in the first video. The first probably 4 or 5 chapters are going to come out all at once. And then after that, it's going to be 1 chapter a week until we're done with the book. And then we'll move on to the next one. So thank you all for watching. If you want to, I should have shouted this out before you can go join the Patreon if you want to. You'll get these videos a week early. So as a matter of fact, if you're watching any of these chapters 1 through 5 right now, you should be able to watch chapter 6 as well over on Patreon. If you want to do that. Plus you get your name in the video and all kinds of other cool stuff over there. So go check that out if that's something you're interested in. Thank you all for watching. Everyone have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.